So here's our first one. The claim that there actually is no truth. Now, what do we mean by that? Or what do they mean by this, that there is no truth? What they mean is that no one has direct access to reality. Because all we have is our perception. So, what I see and what I hear is how I interface with reality, and that is affected by my language and by my culture and by my experiences. And so I'm always getting a distorted picture of what's going on. I never have direct access to reality. Therefore, I can't really claim in an absolute sense that anything that I believe is true. This is an idea widely in the realm of something called postmodernism, which a few decades ago had a lot of popularity on the college campuses. I think it's sort of petered out now, but there are remnants of these ideas that are still around and affecting challenges to Christian faith. So something either works or it doesn't, and that's the only important thing. So here is a spokesperson, Richard Rorty, for this point of view.
I think it was unfortunate that pragmatism became thought of as a theory or definition of truth. I think it would have been better if the pragmatists had said, we can tell you about justification, but we can't tell you about truth. There's nothing to be said about it. That is, we know how we justify beliefs. We know that the adjective true is the word we apply to the beliefs that we've justified. We know that a belief can be true without being justified. That's about all we know about truth. And justification is relative to an audience and to a range of truth candidates. Truth isn't relative to anything. Just because it isn't relative to anything, there's nothing to be said about it. And truth with a capital T is sort of like God. There's not much you can say about God. That's why theologians talk about ineffability. Contemporary pragmatists tend to say the word true is indefinable, but none the worse for that. We know how to use it. We don't have to define it.
If you define it in the Nietzschean term, there are no facts, there are only interpretations.
Yeah, that gives the general pragmatist idea that no description, or if you like, no interpretation, is closer to reality than any other. Some of them are more useful for some purposes than others, but that's about all you can say. And Nietzschean perspectivism, which says, you can't rise above interpretations and get to facts, or dig down below interpretations and get to facts, is substantially the same thing as I meant before when I said that pragmatists try to get rid of the reality appearance distinction.
The basic point that he was saying is that if something works, that's all that matters. You can't have direct access to truth. All you have are interpretations. So here's another view of things. When we're talking about truth. We'll see if this makes any more sense.
Why is the belief in the authority of the Bible necessary to claim a foundation for objective truth in postmodern culture? That's the question. I actually don't think it is. I don't think you have to believe in the authority of the Bible in order to claim that there is a foundation for objective truth in a postmodern culture. The foundation for objective truth is reality. It's the world as it is. Keep in mind what truth means. And let me back up for just a moment. I think Christians, well-meaning Christians, inaccurately suggest that you need the Bible in order to have objective truth. And this is just false or absolute truth. So let's just step back for a moment and ask what truth is. Truth is when a statement fits the way the world really is. Or a statement or belief or point of view, however you want to characterize that. But so all you need in order for there to be truth is you need to have reality. And then you have to have propositions about reality expressed in various ways, that matched reality. You don't need a Bible. Strictly speaking, you don't need God. Now, I think you need God to have ultimate reality itself. That's a different question. But given the nature of truth itself, do we need the Bible to have truth? No. Now, I think we need the Bible, like, for example, I'm sitting in front of a desk and a computer. Is that true? Yes. If I am, notice how no reference to the Bible or God or anything is necessary to be able to claim that I can know truth. There is truth regarding those issues. So now, there are some truths, it seems, that we could never know unless God told us. You can't know the truths of my mind unless I tell you what those truths are. That is, the thoughts in my mind, etc. And the New Testament identifies that. It says nobody can know the thoughts of a man except for the spirit of the man in him, and no one can know the thoughts of God except for the Spirit, and anyone who the Spirit chooses to reveal. So if I want to reveal my ideas, or God wants to reveal his private ideas, then we can do so. And we need revelation for that kind of thing, but not for truth in general. So I just want to keep these two categories separate. Okay? Truth is simply the relationship between reality and someone's claim or belief regarding reality. If there's a fit, if they match up, if the world is the way we think it is, then our statement is true.
This is what Greg Kokel calls the garden variety definition of truth. That's what we all mean by it. If I say something is true and it matches reality, then my statement is correct. Okay. So if I say that my phone is on the table and my phone actually is on the table, then that statement is true. If it's not on the table, the statement is false. So this points out a difference between whether truth actually exists as facts, or the difference between that and my ability to know what the truth is. And that's a distinction that I didn't hear Richard Rorty make, but I think is kind of what it boils down to. Now, when somebody says there is no truth, usually what they're trying to do is undermine your confidence in what you believe is true and what matches reality. And so this is a popular ploy, especially on college campuses, to say there is no truth, therefore everything's up for grabs, and we're just kind of all muddling through. Which brings to mind the question, well, what is the university there for if there is no truth? Why am I going to your class? Okay. So think of it this way. Regarding the claim there is no truth, is that statement true? Is that statement true? Does it accurately describe reality? What do you think? If it does, then it doesn't. Do you see that? The statement, there is no truth, it actually refutes itself. So this is one of those types of claims that we can be on the lookout for, something that is self-refuting, that if it's impossible to be true. And a classic example of a self-refuting statement is, I cannot speak a word of English. Or, no sentences longer than 3 words are true. You get it? Okay. That's a self-refuting statement. This is a self-refuting statement. Sometimes you see self-refutation kind of hidden, but below the surface. Here's another way that this particular idea is pressed. You recognize this fable, the blind men and the elephant? So the way that this story goes, it's usually said in India, continent of India, that there are a bunch of blind men that come into town and they encounter an elephant for the very first time. And they don't know what it is. And they each grab a different part of the elephant to try to describe what it is. And one one takes the tusk and says, oh, the elephant is like a spear. And another touches the side and says, no, the elephant's like a wall. And the other one grabs his tail. No, you're wrong. The elephant is like a rope. And so forth. The elephant is like a pillar. The elephant is like a fan. So they all have these different assertions about what the elephant is like based on their own personal experience, but they all differ. And then, the Raja is up on the balcony looking down at the courtyard and, sees them all arguing among themselves. And he says, be quiet. You're all wrong. Or you all have just a piece of the truth. The elephant is a large animal. And if you put all of your observations together, then you'll have a complete picture of what an elephant is. Okay, so what's the point of this fable? Well, usually it's applied to the concept of religion. That, all religions don't have a complete view of spiritual reality, but they have a part of the truth. And if you put all the religions together, then you'll get a more full, more accurate vision of what God is like, or what religious truth is. If you're a secularist, you don't have to talk about religion. You can talk about just truth and perceptions in general. And so nobody has access to ultimate reality, to the big picture, to what's called a meta-narrative. Nobody knows that, but we each have a slice of it based on our cultural experiences and the perceptions that we have colored by our language and so forth. So that's the point of what this fable is pressed into service for. Every religion has just a piece of the truth, or cultural bias makes it impossible to know the true nature of things, the big picture. And to illustrate this second point, I have a quote, something about William Graham Sumner, who was a famous anthropologist. It says, in Folkways, a classic presentation, as a book he wrote, a classic presentation of cultural relativism, anthropologist William Graham Sumner argues that morality is not objective in any sense. And here's his quote. He says, every attempt to win an outside standpoint from which to reduce the whole to an absolute philosophy of truth and right, based on an unalterable principle, is delusion, he states. So he's making a very strong assertion about knowledge. Here's what he says. He says that all claims to know objective truth are false, because each of us is imprisoned by his own culture, incapable of seeing beyond the limits of his own biases. Okay? This is classical cultural anthropology. When I was studying sociology, it was Margaret Mead and her, studies. Well, Sumner is right along that line. Sumner concludes, therefore, that truth is relative to culture and that no objective standard exists. Okay, so now you got the view. The religious perspective and the secular perspective. What is the problem with this way of thinking? Your turn. What do you see as a problem with this way of thinking? Now that you've learned about things like self-refutation.
So by virtue of him saying that there is an impossible to know truth, we no more would respect his view of saying that than our view that there is truth.
Okay. Go to the head of the class. Okay, so if you're ever confronted by this parable, in order to kind of uncover what Mark just said, here's a question you can ask. Ask, where are you in this parable? Are you one of the blind men, or are you the Raja? And you can see the problem. If the person who's telling you this parable and trying to press a point, if he says, well, I'm one of the blind men too, we all are, then the next question is, well, how is it then that you know the big picture of reality when you say it's impossible to know that. Or if he says, well, I'm the Raja, I know what the big picture is. Then the question is, well, how is it that you come to this privileged position of being able to see the big picture when nobody else can? There's a little bit of a dilemma in there for the person who's making this claim. Just like William Graham Sumner, who says, okay, I know the truth of things, that there is no truth of things that we can know. For the Christian, there's another question. What if the elephant speaks? Now think of the fable put into a Christian environment. Isn't that what we're claiming? We're saying that, yeah, you're right, we're all blind men. We can't know God and spiritual reality on our own. I mean, we can know a little bit. Romans 1, through nature, we can discover certain things that are true about God, but there's some things that we just can't know unless God tells us. And that's the Christian claim, is that the elephant has actually spoken to us.